My son was born with a severe life-limiting disorder called Trisomy 13, also known as Patau Syndrome. It is a genetic abnormality in which an extra 13th chromosome is found in every cell of the body. It is a random mutation, a 1 in 15,000 chance. It means he's severely mentally and physically disabled. He'll likely never walk, he'll never talk, and he'll die young, very young. I found out about my son's condition about a week after he was born, and from that moment on, I have been forced to come to terms with my new reality. That I would, someday, possibly not long from now, have to let my son go. I'm quite sure I experienced the typical stages of grief, or at least the first one. Denial. I vividly remember believing that my son would be the exception, that he would stun all of the doctors, all of the nurses, hell, the entire medical community, with just how healthy, able, and intelligent he really was. The genetic tests would come back negative, or he'd turn out to be an exceptionally mild case. He'd walk, yes he would. He'd run me ragged, galloping all over the house. And he'd talk to me, of course he would. He'd talk my ear off. I'd never be able to shut the little guy up. And I'd revel in it. I'd watch him and listen to him every moment I could. They'd all see. I'd show them all. My son would show them all. And in some ways, I was right. He would surprise them all. He would surprise us all. He'd go on to leave hospital, come home, and he'd continue living, growing, surprising, and thriving. But in many, many other very important, critical ways, I was undeniably, unsurprisingly, completely wrong. My son had trisomy 13, full trisomy 13. He was a typical case, albeit on the somewhat lucky, somewhat healthy, somewhat strong end of the spectrum, but mostly just typical. This was, in fact, my reality. A reality I now had to live with for the rest of my life, for the rest of my son's life. In trying to cope with his mortality, with the prospect of someday bidding him farewell, a question I have often found myself asking is, how long is long enough? I know my son will die before me. I know he'll die early. But how early is too early for me? If he lived for another 10 years, would that feel like long enough? Would that feel like a successful life for my son? How about 5 years? Or just 3? The truth is, I've never found the answer to this question. And I think the reason is that no number could ever possibly feel high enough. No amount of time could ever feel long enough. And it never will, no matter how much time I get with him, no matter how long he keeps fighting for. It'll never be enough. I still ask myself this question even today. My son is now 3 years old, and by most accounts is doing very well. But I still wonder when I'll consider his life to be a well-lived one. when I'll look at it in the way that we look at an elderly person in their 90s. They lived well and long, and their time has now come. I want to feel that way when my son passes. I want to know that I did everything I could to give him a life that was both happy and long. I want both of them. I need both of them. I know he doesn't really care about these things. They're daddy things, not Lyly things. He just wants to be comfortable and cozy. He wants cuddles, tickles, and time alone with his toys. He wants to bounce on his daddy's lap and kick his sister while she plays with his feet. He doesn't want pain, and he doesn't want to cry. That much I know. But he doesn't care about his mortality. When he dies, he won't know about it. He'll go, hopefully in peace, and he'll leave me behind. He'll leave all of us behind. So until that day comes, I'll just keep moving forward, one foot and then the next. I'll keep pouring my love onto him, showering him in kisses, bathing him in cuddles, and doing whatever I can to help him live well, live happily, and live long. That is my promise to him, to myself, and to all of you.